Hey everyone, I'm meteorologist Mark Collins. We're talking about sargassum seaweed. Yep, we're back on that topic just because it's been so popular. I did a Google search trend search, and the term sargassum seaweed has jumped to the highest search ever in the history of Google. In fact, take a look here over the past month. There you see this thing jumping up real high. So what's everybody searching for? Well, the blob that's in the Atlantic that's supposedly supposed to take over Florida. You think that's really going to happen? Absolutely not. Media hysteria for sure. So I'm here to clean up the record. And I could do that because I worked at the College of Marine Science at University of South Florida. And just down the hall from me was the world's first seaweed monitoring lab. And they use satellites from NASA to scan the oceans because it's been a real problem. Since 2011, we've seen more and more and more of this seaweed accumulating in the Atlantic. And it's all due to the deforestation in the Atlantic. This is one of the main theories that if you cut down the trees, a lot of the nutrients rush into the Amazon, and it's the fertilizer for the ocean that causes these blooms of algae. And so it's been kind of a problem forming there off of the coastline of Brazil and over the central Atlantic. And there's a big patch which extends all the way across the Atlantic. And here you can see when I bring this up that over the past several years, that blob has always been there. So that is nothing new. The fact that 2023 has the second highest concentration is quite noteworthy compared to 2018. That was the most seaweed. But as you can see, that seaweed is in the same spot in February each and every year. And the latest bulletin from the USF scientists showed that the concentrations, although they had doubled every month since November through January, February has actually dropped off a little bit. But in the Caribbean Sea, that's a satellite image of a lot of these areas of seaweed and other floating objects there. And those trade winds usually push it right towards the Yucatan Peninsula. So when you see pictures of mats of seaweed several feet high, that's not going to be Florida. It never has been Florida because the currents are not directed towards Florida. But they are directed to the Caribbean, and that's where there's been a problem, and also the Greater Antilles. In fact, it's so much of a problem that the Greater Antilles has seaweed forecasts for their local beaches, and it will continue to peak into July, which is usually the annual peak of that seaweed. So we'll probably see some of that seaweed on our beaches like we do every year, since it is out in the Atlantic when we get those easterly winds, or when an eddy spins off of the central Atlantic, it can occasionally bring in those patches of seaweed to our beaches. So you can read more about this article on newsforjax.com. Just go to the weather tab and click down for the latest story.